Alright, so this video is going to be all about the rights, duties, and responsibilities of being a US citizen. But briefly, before we do that, let's talk about what are the requirements to be a citizen. To be a citizen, you have to meet one of these 5 requirements. Either you were born on US soil, one of your parents was a US citizen or is a US citizen when you were born. If you're naturalized, that means you came to the country not as a citizen, but applied for citizenship and were granted it. That's naturalization. If a parent becomes a citizen while you're under 18. So if you're a minor and your parents aren't citizens, but they become citizens through naturalization or through the final requirement, if you're not 18 yet, then you will also become a citizen. And finally, if you serve in the military. If you serve in the military, if they allow you in, then after you're done with your service, they will grant you citizenship that way as well. The thing we're going to talk about is the 5 rights of U.S. citizens. The first right that you have as a U.S. citizen is the voice in government, and that voice is voting. It's not the same as freedom of speech. We've talked about it in the past. We'll talk about it later, but it's your ability to vote. That is your right. That is one right that the government has to protect, because all rights that you have, the government's responsibility is to protect them. The other right that you have that the government must protect is protecting you while you are working or traveling in other countries. Now, if you are going over there intentionally breaking the law, the government will not help you. But if you are going over to other countries and you're not trying to break the law and you're trying to be a good citizen and just do what you're going over there to do, and the government in that foreign country treats you unfairly, you have the right to ask the United States government to come protect you, come help you, bring you back home safely. Another right you have is a right to a fair trial. Fair trial means a lot of different things that we'll talk about later, but the most important thing you need to know right now is to make sure the trial is fair is your right to have a jury of peers decide your fate. So whether you're guilty or innocent, you can choose not to have a jury, but you can't have that decision taken away from you. It is your decision. If you want citizens, not the government, not your president, not your governor. If you want citizens who don't know you, they're not involved in the case, to decide whether you're guilty or innocent, and that is the fairest way, the most honest way to do it, you have that right. The government must protect that right for you. The government also has to protect the right to practice any religion you want the way you want, as long as you don't hurt the rights of others in the way you practice. We'll talk about more of that later. Finally, the last right that is protected is free speech. Of course, that kind of includes voting, but in addition to voting, it's your right to say what you want when you want. Now, there's limits. If what you were saying hurts someone, like if you're telling lies, or if you're saying something that might cause someone else to be physically hurt, that's not protected. But with the exception of those things, you can say what you want, no matter how negative, no matter how anti-government, no matter how unpopular it is. The government must protect your right to say those things. You cannot be thrown in jail or fined or taxed extra for things that you say. Okay, the flip side of having rights is that there's certain duties. Duties are things that you are required to do, and if you don't do them, you will be punished by the government. Okay, first is attending school. Anybody under the age of 18 is required by law to attend school, because this is how we make sure our young people are able to contribute as adults once they've achieved adulthood. Are they prepared for the working world? Are they prepared for responsibility? Are they educated with the skills that they'll need to participate even if they want to after they've become 18 years old? Obeying the law. This one's pretty obvious. As a citizen, you're required to obey the law. If you don't, you'll be punished. Jury duty. Just like you have a right to have a jury, that means people who are citizens and not involved with the government making decisions for whether you are guilty or innocent, you have a duty. You are required to do the same for others so that they can have the same rights that you have. Because no one really wants to do jury duty. It's kind of boring, and it might be really inconvenient because maybe you just don't have the time for it. It just needs to happen. So after you turn 18, this is something that will come up throughout the rest of your life. Paying taxes is another thing that is required by the United States government because that is what funds things that you benefit from, such as schools, medical programs, clinics, streets that don't have holes in them so you can drive places. All kinds of things are funded by the government, and there's a lot of things the government protects you from, but it's not free. People don't work for nothing, even if it's for good causes. So taxes is what pays for those things. Finally, the last duty that you have to do is sign up for military service. Now, at the moment, this is only a duty for 18-year-old males. And that doesn't mean you have to go out and join the military, but you have to register for it so that if they ever bring a draft, which is when they randomly pick people to forcibly join the military and go fight in a war, if you've registered, your name is in that bucket, so to speak. Now, they haven't had the draft since the 70s, and really the government, anytime it's ever come up since the 70s, they've said, we don't really want to do that, because when you force people to fight that don't want to fight, they're usually not very good fighters. But still, it could happen. It is totally legal to bring the draft back and force people to go to war. So that's why, as a citizen, you are required to sign up for military service. Finally, there are 6 responsibilities. Responsibilities are not things you have to do. These are things you should do, because if you don't, it will hurt people, either yourself, your community, your whole country even. But if you don't do it, no one's going to come over and slap your hand. For example, let's say you're living by yourself, not with your parents, and you have a dirty house that you're living in. Well, your parents aren't living there. Government don't care. So if you want to have your dirty house and don't clean it, fine. No one's going to come get you. That's a responsibility of yours, but you can choose not to do it. But you can have a dirty house. It might start to smell. It's going to be hard for you to find things. There are consequences for not living up to your responsibilities. The difference between a responsibility and a duty is that no one's going to come over and slap you upside the back of the head. No one's going to punish you for not doing them. The first responsibility is making sure you are living your life in such a way that you contribute to the common good that we talked about earlier. The common good meaning making sure you're doing things that help people, that don't hurt people. Very similar to the next responsibility, serving the community. This could be volunteer work. This could also be choosing a career that you get paid for that helps people. It could be becoming a politician, a doctor, a teacher, a librarian, a public defender that helps people that can't afford their own lawyer. So many different ways. Those are just a few that you could do. But whether you get paid for it or volunteer for it, make sure in some way you're helping your community. The next responsibility is holding government office. This isn't a responsibility saying that you should hold office, though if you want to, if you think you got a good plan, go for it. No, what this is part of a theme you're going to hear me talk about a lot about in this video and through the rest of the course. Becoming informed, knowing exactly what you're going to be making decisions on, and not just knowing the question or understanding the question, but researching, finding facts. Don't just express an opinion because, well, it makes sense because of this thing I thought of. No. What facts, what events, what research, what did you read, what did you study, what hard facts are backing up your opinions, not just making decisions because it feels right, but actually having some kind of proof that someone else can look up and see. That's what being informed is all about, not just making up your own examples. Joining election campaigns is another responsibility. Even if you can't vote, you can still support elections for candidates that you agree with by helping them pass out flyers, making phone calls, getting people registered to vote. This is a way of you contributing to people being informed and making good, wise decisions when they're voting. Because making wise decisions is our 5th responsibility. Educating yourself, being informed, researching, reading, listen to what people are having to say on both sides of the argument for any political decision that you're going to take a stance on, you're going to have an opinion on. educate yourself. So you're not just voting on something because, yeah, that sounds kind of right, or I think I heard someone say something that made kind of sense. No, really make sure you understand the issue fully, because if you're not really fully educated, you're not informed, and you will not make wise voting decisions, and that is a responsibility. Connected to that, influencing the government, other than voting, other than everything else we've talked about as far as responsibilities, is making sure that you are making your voice heard. Again, not just through voting, but through writing letters. Now, writing hand letters on paper and putting it in the mailbox, that unfortunately doesn't work. Those don't get read. It's too much time to open them one at a time, read through, figure out what they're trying to say. It's just not going to work. But emails do. Emails work. Why? Because they're electronic. There are technologies out there that can compile the emails. People will read them, skim them, pull out the essence of it, like for this idea, against this idea, and put it in a database to try to figure out, okay, all the emails that came in, how many are for this idea, how many are against this idea, and then pass that on to the representative who would actually vote on that thing, so he knows, oh, okay, this is what people want me to do. I'm going to do it because I want them to vote for me next time. Because politicians, their number one responsibility in their minds, it's not necessarily to do the right thing, it's to keep their job. How do they keep their job? Keep the voters happy. And they assume if you've got time to send an email, you've got time to vote, and they're going to pay attention. Because with the emails, they have the time to listen, they want to listen, they will listen. Influence the government. It's one of your responsibilities to send those emails. You could ask me in class. There are many examples of how in the last 10 years, people emailing their representatives has played a major role in the passing or not passing of legislation that would help or hurt us. And that's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, let me know in class, and I'll see you in class.